Hello everybody, welcome to Blue Marble Science. Did you know the Space Shuttle main fuel tank was actually a blimp? Well, these guys are going to try to tell you that. Warning! Severe facial and monitor damage alert is in effect. Get out those oven mitts. Push the monitors back out of punching range. And Gladys, let's light this dumpster fire and have some fun. Here's our two main actors in this latest hoax. On the left, we have Mr. Bob Nodell, and on the right, we have, of course, Jeranism. Turns out these two guys can tell more fibs than a yard full of 12-year-olds standing in front of a broken window. Let's listen to Bob as he kicks this thing off.
And I want to talk about a video that David released last week, and I'm going to go ahead and play it in the background while we're talking. He released this, released this a few days ago, or last week, whenever it was, David, November 30th. Oh, wow, I guess that was yesterday. Was it that? Wow. I thought it was longer.
This was, I lived this is the second video of 3.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyway, what it's about is, he made the rather bold assertion that these rocket boosters are actually blimps, right? And yeah, that's a pretty bold assertion to make, but to me, it didn't seem unreasonable at all because if you guys have been following Globebusters, you know that Jeran and I have been commenting for at least 3 years whenever we watch a rocket launch that it appears it doesn't make any sense that something could lumber up so slowly. And, it's kind of like trying to balance a pencil on your fingertip and be able to have all those reactions, happen so quickly that one single jet engine on a gimbal, rocket engine on a gimbal could possibly keep that thing under control.
Well, it's not a single engine on a gimbal, Bob. It's actually 3 engines that gimbal on the shuttle itself. And you've also got the 2 engines on the solid rocket boosters. I would think a highly experienced pilot like yourself would have taken more interest in the space shuttle.
So we posited, years ago, it's like, well, what if that construct was actually filled up with helium, right? If it was, then you would have a very definite element of vertical stability. And then it would seem like it was a lot more viable to go up that slowly and, kind of have a fireworks show behind it, whatever. And we also have seen, on every single launch, of course, it always goes horizontal and then starts descending, down to the ground. But the idea is that, NASA being the largest consumer of helium in the world.
Oh, NASA needs their helium, all right, for pressurizing tanks and cleaning stuff and one thing or the other, but most of the helium goes to cryogenics and pressurizing and purging systems and welding and controlled atmospheres and things like that.
Is using helium for a lot more than just, what we would define as standard balloons. I think David was very accurate in saying that this was a blimp. It has some very definite characteristics. It doesn't seem to want to fall anywhere near as fast. And in fact, we're going to see that on his newest video that we're going to be premiering here shortly. But, so the idea of balloons being used in military.
I think we need to sharpen our visual recognition skills. This is a blimp. This is a fuel tank. Blimp. Fuel tank. Got it?
Agency projects is not unusual at all. And of course, we know that we've seen, a million times that they're attaching satellite equipment on it, all kinds of equipment that can be used for communication. And we also know that there are literally tens of thousands of balloons above us at any time. And we have also considered the fact that, as far as being able to manipulate these particular balloons, NASA talks about these electrostatic tethers that they put on that essentially they release a long conductive material behind the balloon and they apply a charge to it, and it allows them to manipulate the altitude, the z-axis of the balloon going up and down. And this is, this is out in the open technology. NASA doesn't deny it. Nobody denies it. We've seen spiders do the same thing, spider ballooning, same type of concept. In other words,
so that's how they do it. Man, those NASA people are sneaky. I wonder where they keep all those spiders.
They've got these balloons, being able to navigate them down to an art, and they can use a myriad of ways to navigate them. Okay. So you look at things like this, and really the way that they act, and I think David did a really good job in pointing these out, is that, they act a lot like they are filled full of helium and not a 58,000 pound steel tank. It's just absurd, especially when you look at footage like this. So
well,
David, go for it.
On this. So we're supposed to believe that this tank is free falling, okay, to 58,000 pounds. That's heavy. Look at that PVC pipe that's going along one side of it, going along the top side right now, and the pipe sticking out on the bottom. I would say, if this thing is free falling, it would be turning. That would be grabbing the wind and turning it. This is just rotating like a Macy's Day parade balloon.
That pipe you're talking about running down the outside of the external fuel tank is the liquid oxygen line. The liquid oxygen tank is in the upper part of the external fuel tank. That line is not made out of PVC. NASA does not do its shopping at Home Depot or Lowe's. 8.5 minutes into a shuttle flight, the shuttle reaches MECO, main engine cutoff. That occurs at about 65 miles altitude and a speed of about 17,000 miles per hour. Now that is not sufficiently fast to maintain orbit. That is actually a ballistic trajectory that will result in the shuttle and the main fuel tank re-entering the Earth's atmosphere somewhere over the Indian Ocean. The photographs you see are specifically intended to look at the main fuel tank to see if any damage occurred on the ride up, especially anything that may have damaged the orbiter. After the photography is completed, the shuttle's orbital maneuvering system rockets are fired, and that increases the shuttle speed to orbital velocity. The atmosphere is not grabbing the main fuel tank because at 65 miles there is no atmosphere. You're simply seeing the tank on a ballistic trajectory along with the shuttle. Come on, guys, this is really not that hard.
It's crazy not to think this is a helium balloon.
Exactly. Yeah, completely.
If you go back about 15, 20 seconds, you're going to see something cross over the top of the blimp. A little, and it's
Look at the back of the orbiter when it separates from the fuel tank. What you're seeing are pieces of foil that come off during that separation. The foil, the orbiter, and the external tank are all moving at the same speed, and they're not in the Earth's atmosphere. So the foil continues just like the shuttle and the fuel tank. You see this on every launch. It's nothing unusual.
Yeah, I pasted in the comment section of the Skype two images, one from the Second World War and the other in our modern days, and you can clearly compare that with this kind of balloon, and it's the same thing. I mean, they can do whatever they want with plastic and helium. Completely agree.
Yeah, they use that to decoy the Germans and to pretend that they're in different places and to draw some fire.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, all of the fuel from this thing has 5 minutes or less to get out and get into the rockets of the shuttle. Where is the valve? Where is the tube that all of that fuel is going through at that speed?
The shuttle main engines burn for 8.5 minutes, not less than 5 minutes. The lines carrying the fuel are right at the bottom of the external tank. The liquid hydrogen line is on the left, the oxygen line is on the right. Notice the diameter of that tank. It is 27.6 feet in diameter. Those pipes are rather large, wouldn't you say?
That's impossible.
Yeah.
It looks
It
pretty
would
sketchy.
take hours to get the fuel out.
Yeah, highly suspicious. And of course, they also, in your upcoming video, they also talk about that the space shuttle, or the ISS, I guess, comes around and catches it on its fall, after it's an entire orbit, which of course is at 17,500 miles an hour is about 90 minutes, right? That's amazing. that should have been way on the ground long before that. But
And the other
we'll see
thing,
that.
Well, now we get to see the true level of deception these guys are willing to engage in. You just heard Bob Nodell talk about the space shuttle going all the way around one entire orbit to catch up with the external tank. What I'm about to show you is the actual video from NASA. That video was taken 8.5 minutes after launch, not 90 minutes after launch. Bob, you're lying about this and you know it.
This again is video recorded earlier today after the external tank separated from Space Shuttle Endeavour, about 8 minutes into its mission. Video was recorded by Mike Fink, and is being sent down to the teams on the ground for a closer look to gather any data that they can from it, and in particular make sure that there aren't any indications of anything that might have happened that would have hurt Endeavour's heat shield on its climb into orbit.
So let's now move forward to the next video. And this one, you guys may remember Planete Veritas, Robert Bassano. And back in 2016, June 5th, 2016, he highlighted this particular interview with this Lieutenant Colonel Harold E. Mitchell about the Corona program. Well, this document, of course, he was smart enough to save this document. And by the way, the NSA has scrubbed this and sanitized this off of the web. Fortunately, I kept it and I have it, and I will make it available to everybody in a Google share after the show is over.
I typed interview with Lieutenant Colonel Harold E. Mitchell in Google, and this is the very first thing that came up, Bob. So apparently either the NSA really sucks at removing things from the internet, or you don't know how to do a Google search. One of the two. But we're not going to talk about this nonsense anyway. I want to get back to the fuel tank. Is that okay with you, Pinocchio Doodle? Watch the pieces of foil that come off when the orbiter and the external tank separate. I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that that is a relatively small piece of foil, but it's in the foreground, and the fuel tank is maybe a quarter of a mile away. You think that's possible?
Super
Brilliant.
nice. Yeah. It's the white night. It's not the black night, you know?
the white night satellite.
Yeah, the white night satellite.
Exactly. And so, guys, take a look at this thing and look what appears to be coming out from the tail. It almost looks like a hook apparatus. It's hard to tell, obviously, because, you know, it's very, very much camouflaged. And I'm sure a lot more video processing may be able to give us some more details. But again, it appears that they are using the same old tech that they've been using for a half a century to recover balloons, except this time, this way they can do it right in front of people's face and they can never even see it, just like we showed on the chemtrail spraying aircraft. You know, you can't see the aircraft. It seems to be invisible, but it's absolutely there. And brilliant.
Okay, one last time. These are small, but the ones out there are far away. Small, far away. Forget it.
And why not just put up this ridiculous blimp with no way for the fuel to get out of it? No way that thing can go Mach 22. I mean, with those pieces of metal sticking out. And what about the bolts that hold it on to the rocket? You know, that's insanity. That those bolts. What kind of bolts are those?
What's the date from this, David? Do you know when was this mission flown?
Why would it not burn up in the atmosphere? I have so many questions.
Supposedly, yeah. No, and they use real footage. That's for sure. I am not saying that they create this in digital. No, that is that. But they use miniature all the time. They use from the 69 when they fake the moon landing. They use a lot of techniques. I am not saying that this is the case, but you know, it's so strange how they.
Oh yeah, I can identify it. It's not an airplane. It's a piece of foil, you jackwagon.
This is the official video from NASA, and supposedly this is what happened. I mean, you have a flat Earth in the background, and then you have this. First of all, how you have fire in that altitude in the atmosphere. That's the first thing that I start thinking about. Man.
Oh wait, and Ira, before you go any further on that, I want to point something out. This right here, they're at the apex of the triangle, is held on to the shuttle with one bolt. One freaking bolt. Get out of town.
Of plane. And look at that little. I mean, well, Bob, it's like 2 inches in diameter. Come on.
Well, I guess you got us there, Pinocchio Doodle. There's the front bipod and a guy working on the front bipod, mounting it to the shuttle. There's a blow-up of the guy on the right. Take a look at the size of the man's arm. Take a look at the size of those struts. That's some rather large stuff. I think you're having a problem with scale here, Bob. Mounted on a transporter, there's a picture of that bolt. That thing is about the size of your wrist. You guys really do have an issue with scale, don't you?
Okay, so then you have this, and here is when it's released, you know, simply as that. And then this tank, it's not in the orbital path of the spherical Earth. This is just 100 kilometers up there and must be falling down at a certain speed.
Where does the fuel come out and go into the rockets? Where's the connection for the fuel?
If you want to see that mule's teeth, you got to look in the other end, buddy. There's the fuel lines.
I don't know.
I think it's those bottom things they supposedly say. We can see them in this image here. The bottom little 2 sticks go into the solid rockets, which do come back to Earth. But my understanding was that the orange tank never comes back. So I'm way off if that's
I thought it falls in the
but it could be. But I mean, at that altitude, you must be come down.
Correct.
Technically speaking, in their own model, you must get back to the Earth.
Right, but I'm baffled that with the amount of times that the shuttle is supposedly taken off, which is 130 something, or I don't know, more than that there's no video of either A, the external tank coming down in the ocean, or B, the external tank burning up. Because it's not.
Now, why would someone want to sit in the middle of the Indian Ocean to watch a piece of space junk burn up, Jeran? Wouldn't seem to be a really good use of resources to me.
Tell me, not what I think. But what they say is that it's being detached at 60 miles high, and I always thought that it burned up in the atmosphere on the way back, but maybe I'm wrong.
That's how it worked, Jeran. The external fuel tank followed a ballistic trajectory and normally would burn up over the Indian Ocean, although on a few of the missions it burned up over the Pacific Ocean. It just depended on the specifics of the mission. Now here's a question for you geniuses. If that thing is a balloon, how in the world do you think they bolted 2 solid rocket boosters and the orbiter to it? There it is on the pad being moved to the launch site. How is that balloon supporting the weight of the shuttle? That makes absolutely no sense. But then again, most of what you guys say doesn't make any sense anyway. So with that, thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. There's a link to the Patreon down there. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Hey, Gladys. We're out of here.